Hi and welcome to the channel. Today we will build another SFF PC by using this case, which is the D21 Pro. D21 Pro is a 7.3 liter case that can be bought through Lazada's Taobao integration. I bought this at 1,300 pesos, but now it is at stupid expensive price of 6,000 pesos. Anyway, do watch out for sales, especially at 11.11 or 12.12, so that you can have a chance to buy this at a cheaper price. Physically, this looks like a D19. It is just thicker and has more depth, and it's also taller. So you can also think of this as a big brother of D19. Anyway, for this case, there are some accessories inside. So with D19, I already know that this is likely a handle. And these are likely screws. Let's open it. So yes, handle, which is nice. Let's install this later. Then likely a bunch of screws based on experience. So yeah, these are just a bunch of screws. If you're going to buy this case, my suggestion is to transfer these screws in a resealable pouch so that you will not lose the screws. Let's screw this first. So this is the GPU side of the case. It has a USB 3 connector and it has audio front panel connector and a power switch. So there's no power LED. It can also fit a normal SFX power supply, so you don't need to buy a special flex power supply for this. And it can fit a GPU of 2 slots and a total length of 207 millimeters. The side panels are still flimsy, so as you can notice, they are very thin. As this is, I consider this as a low quality budget case that can do the job. So unlike the D19, you can't remove the top panel, and also unlike the D19, this has mounts for 92mm fans. So the front panel has power switch, USB 3, and 3.5mm audio jack. Yeah, so the rest are riveted, so you can't remove other panels. As for the cooler, it can fit a 64mm radiator, which is not coincidentally, I chose the IS60 for that. Okay, so with this, I think I have to mount the handle first because it will be tough to mount later on. So the screws of the handle are not magnetic. Hindi nila ginawa magnetic. So good fit. Okay, so let's set this aside for now. Let's tackle the cooler first. So as promised last time, I will try to swap both fans with Noctua fans. The reason is that these fans are too loud. So I think I have to remove 4 screws here and 4 screws here as well. I think Sir Earl also commented that it's good to see if we can swap this out with a 25mm fan. However, this case will not fit that. So I'm going to swap this with a 15mm fan as well. I just noticed that the fans from ID Cooling has no vibration pads. So previously I have put vibration pads on this side, but this time around it will touch the heatsink on this side. So it's going to be like this. So I have to put vibration pads on the other side. Now I have to change this side. So in short, I will lose the performance from the RGB fan. Keep this Y adapter as you need this. Okay, so Noctua fans installed. Okay, as for the motherboard, I'll be using the usual B550i Aorus Pro AX, and the processor is the AMD Ryzen 7 5800X. So I chose the 5800X since the IS60 was able to handle this processor without issues. So I have to put thermal paste first and mount it this way. So just like the previous video, be careful with the motherboard that you will choose in this build because IS60 has a height clearance issue. Align the back plate, then put in screws. Okay, so cooler installed. As for power supply, I'll be using a Cooler Master V850 SFX Gold. This is an overspec power supply for this build. I only chose this because I am going to use this in the future builds. But if you can find a cheaper one, maybe around 650 watts, then it should be fine in this build. So this is the power supply itself. It's actually pretty small. So what I'll need is an 8-pin CPU power, of course the 24-pin, then one PCIe. So there are a bunch of screws included, and this is likely for the power supply. So just plug in the cables. This is my first SFX power supply, so I was actually in a shock that there are 6 screws for it. I'll just use 4. Okay, power supply installed. I think it's time to install the motherboard. And probably it's the cables as well. By the way, the storage is a Samsung 980 1TB NVMe SSD. The reason for going NVMe SSD is that it will not use any cables. So that's my suggestion. That's my usual suggestion for ITX builds. I think for now we can mount this to the case itself. So again, usually you would mount the motherboard like this if it is a normal case. But since this is a sandwich case, you have to flip the motherboard upside down. One thing I like about this motherboard is that it has a backplate pre-installed, so I don't have to worry about it. So for motherboard, it usually has a crown like this. I like this cooler because it does not interfere with the case, unlike the EXP90. As for the RAM, I'll be using the usual Kingston 32GB DDR4 3600 mega transfers CL18 RAM. RAM nowadays have so many specifications. Okay, it seems that the clearance is just right, but I'll be covering the RGB with this. My suggestion is to position the fans at the bottom side. So actually it's on the top side now. So this is a bit of low quality. This can be easily be pulled, so be careful. I also doubt that this will work, but I'll try it anyway. As for the cables, there are a few options, but I guess just tuck it in. So what's next is to install this riser. So this is a PCIe X16 riser. Oh, I forgot one thing. Okay, so I have forgot one thing. This is a Gen 4 motherboard. 5800X is a Gen 4 CPU. My target GPU, which is the RX 6600, is also a Gen 4. So if I use a PCIe Gen 3 riser, this will not post. The easiest solution is to post this using another GPU first, since I have one. Always plan your build. Even though I'm making this video, I did not plan for this. I actually forgot. It's in my head already, but I forgot. Anyway, I'll go with this build. Okay, so for now, I'll be using this Gigabyte GT730 just to boot. For now, I'll not be securing this. I just need this to boot. Okay, I'll boot this first. Okay, now that I've changed the PCIe version, I can uninstall this now. So the good thing about this graphics card is it doesn't require any power. It's very small and it's good for troubleshooting. Okay, so as planned, I'll be using an RX 6600 from Sapphire Pulse. So the main reason why I chose the Sapphire Pulse is that this is the best card that I can put in this case. So there are other cards that are better than this Sapphire Pulse RX 6600, such as an RTX 3060 Ti, but I don't have those. So this is the best card that I have that I can put in this case. So to install, don't screw your riser yet. Sometimes it's difficult to fit the graphics card if you already screw it to the case. So as usual, this USB cable is interfering with the graphics card. So route it properly. Then power cables. Okay, so technically I'm almost done. I can install a fan on the top, but I leave it open for now, then just install it later during testing. For the cable mess, I just give out a big sigh on what to do with the cable mess. Oh, there you go. So the build looks fine already. Okay, so the build is done. I've already tested this switch. It was working since I was able to change the PCIe version. So my initial concern looking at this build is this graphics card. I hope it has enough clearance to draw air from it. So in my ZZAW A1P build, I had problems with the 6500 XT as it wasn't able to draw enough air, and thus it was very loud. So for now, I will test first without the fans above, and then I will try to install 2 fans later on. Overall, I like this look. It's very heavy and just have to test it. Okay, as for post-build comments, since I was able to change the PCIe version from Auto to Gen 3, there was no problem during post. As for the noise, it is just loud at any configuration that I made. It is likely due to air turbulence created by this sandwiched fan in the CPU cooler. Adding 2 case fans at the top somehow lessens the noise, but it is still loud. As for the temps, I tested it out with multiple configurations. First is with no fans at the top and closed side panels. The CPU temps average at 73.54 degrees Celsius, and this is normal, while the GPU temps averaged at 74.3 degrees Celsius with a louder fan speed at 63%. At this point, I was thinking of improving my GPU situation similar to my ZZAW A1P build. I tried to remove the side panels and got a 71.8 degrees Celsius temps at 55 to 58% fan speed. This was nowhere near my open test bench result at below 50% fan speed. The CPU in this case got a 3 degrees Celsius improvement as well at 70.78 degrees Celsius. And so I tried adding in 2 exhaust fans at the top. The GPU temps went back to 73 degrees Celsius on average at a fan speed of 58 to 60%, meaning there was not much improvement to the GPU at all configurations. But on the CPU side, I got an 8 degrees Celsius improvement. And yes, you heard it right. So my average temps was at 65.35 degrees Celsius. Again, compared to 73.54 degrees Celsius on a closed case and a 70.78 degrees Celsius on an open side panel case. At this point, I was really monitoring the run to see if it was a fluke, and it wasn't. These 2 exhaust fans moved the airflow so much for the CPU that it was able to beat an open test bench. With that, I swapped back the ARGB fan, not the 92mm fan at the bottom since it was a hassle to swap, and the temps increased by 1 degree Celsius from the Noctua fan, which is pretty much insignificant as it still outperformed my open air test. At this point, I only have theories why it performed so well for the CPU. As you can see in this build, the hot air around the CPU will probably have no escape. Having an exhaust probably helped to remove the hot air from those small corners in the motherboard out from the whole system. As for the GPU, the fans were working a lot harder compared to when it was on my open test bench. As for my theory, I think it is likely with Sapphire's design, where the heat is dissipated to the sides rather than to the top. I think it is an exhaust issue and not an intake issue, since I should have reached the right fan speeds upon opening the side panels. While benchmarking, I touched the front side of the case and it was hot on the GPU side, just to support my untested theory. Again, these are just theories based on observation. So in summary, the build definitely had the best pairing for the CPU cooler, case, and exhaust fans. But the GPU might not be a good pairing. I suggest to find one that has fin stocks in vertical direction. As for the case, the price is still at 6,000 pesos, which is very expensive. For that price, get a case with a better material that is also well known and well reviewed. So for that amount, you can get an NR200P from Cooler Master or a Height Revolt 3. Or better yet, add a few thousand pesos to get a sub D Messilicious. And if it were to roll back its price to sub 2,000 pesos, even without the PCIe riser, I think this is a good case and would definitely recommend this, and could have been my new favorite case instead rather than the D19. But as we speak, it is not worth it. So there, I guess I've covered everything. Thanks for watching. Do like or dislike, comment on what you think, and subscribe for more unboxing and benchmarks. Bye!